start this like I've started everyone else. That's how did you hear to begin with about this Navy music deal?
When I was in college in 1975, I heard the band a couple of times on tour in western North Carolina, where I lived at that time. I was really impressed with the band. I believe that was the 50th anniversary tour, 1975, I believe. I was really impressed with the band. I went through college. After I finished college, I went in 1978 to study with Dr. Earle Louder at Morehead State University. He suggested I try out for the band. He knew they had an opening. After that, I tried out, and they accepted me. And that was in 1981, and I've been here ever since then.
Okay, let me back up for just a minute, if I may. You went to school in western North Carolina.
Appalachian State University.
Appalachian State, okay. And you've been here ever since then?
I went to Appalachian for 4 years. I did a master's at Morehead State in Kentucky. I actually worked as a civilian outside of the music field for a couple of years while I continued to study with Dr. Louder. 1981, I auditioned for the band. I was accepted. I just went over 23 years a couple of days ago. So
now,
1981 to now.
Euphonium is your primary instrument.
Yes, euphonium instrumentalist.
Okay, that's it. Euphonium instrumentalist.
Yes.
See, I was never that smart. Decided I wanted to be a band director, jack of all trades and master of none. But euphonium was my major. And Earl and I came in the Navy about the same time. So as you were here, talk to me about who had the band while in '75 when you first came.
In '75.
And about your audition.
In '75, when I first heard the band, Commander Muffley was the leader of the band. When I auditioned in 1981. Captain Phillips, or Commander Phillips at that time, was the leader of the band. They were expanding the ceremonial band a bit at that time and adding a euphonium position. I auditioned. I think the three people on my audition committee were Chief Warrant Officer Larry Gatewood, Chief Warrant Officer Bob Fry, and Rodney Rancourt, the drum major at the time, who was a euphoniumist. They heard me, listened to me, recommended me to the commander, and he approved and hired me, and went to boot camp and went on from there.
I'll give you a little bit of an onset. When Captain Phillips, Joe Phillips, first came to the Navy, he was from North Carolina, Kannapolis. Joe said to me at his reception when he just gotten frocked as captain, he says, you know, when I came up to the school to take my audition, and '57 was when I made chief, but he came in June. I made chief in September. And he says, I was sitting down in the auditorium there at the old school, and he says, you were conducting, and I saw all those whites up there, and I'm saying to myself, man, I gotta get some of this. I gotta pass this audition. He was a good trombone player. He was a kid who came in as a good trombone player, but that's just a sort of a passing thing, and it's interesting how this all ties together. He happened to have been the commander of the band when you came along. So how long did it take you to make E7?
I made chief in the cycle of 1988, and April 16th of '89 was actually advanced.
Yeah, about 8 years.
So 7, 8 years,
Yeah, 2 hash mark chief.
Yep.
Yeah, I was too.
I was very, very fortunate. I was lucky I was in the right place at the right time. They made a lot that year, and I snuck in with them.
Okay. So you worked as an E7 chief for how long? Then you advanced to E8?
I picked up E8 sometime in the mid-90s, 94, 95. I really don't remember.
Okay. All right. So when did you become master chief?
2000, I believe. I don't remember as clearly.
That's all right. Doesn't matter, and it's good when you don't. And I'm always trying to pull stuff out of people, and I don't remember things very well either. So now you've got CIC something there.
Yeah. Right now I serve as the chief in charge of the concert ceremonial department. We rotate people between the concert band and the ceremonial band, and I oversee 92 people doing that, doing the ceremonial work and the concert work.
All right. How long you been doing this?
I started that right after Captain Gambone got here, January 1st, 1999. It's been a while.
Okay.
So.
All right. So you were here when he was the assistant leader.
Yes.
And
he was here, seems like a couple of times as assistant leader, and I was here both of those.
And you were here with Commander Field.
Yes.
And with Commander Beck.
Yep.
They were both students in my advanced classes.
Yep.
And I have to put this on here, and they'll be fine with it. But
yep.
At the change of command between Commander Beck and Field, I'm over there a lot of the time. And it warms your heart when you see your students doing well.
Yeah.
So I said to the wives, and I said to Phil, I said, geez, can I see you guys in the office after? As if I amounted to anything, which didn't amount to a hill of beans. I've been out since '71, right?
Yeah.
And they all went in the office, and then I saw Al and said the same thing to him, so he was flitting around. So we're all in the office talking, and Al's not there yet. So pretty soon he comes banging in the office and he says, all right, expletive deleted, what did I do wrong this time? And it was just so perfect because they were in the same class, you know. All I wanted to do was say, hey, you guys don't know how much you warm my heart being here and my being able to say, thank you for doing well. I didn't expect it to be this long, but that's the Navy's link, you know, things that are happening. So you've been 23 years in the band now, and you're planning on going the length?
I've got kids. I got to get through college, so
how old are your kids?
As long as they let me.
How old are your kids?
I have 14-year-old triplets. Just had their birthday party a couple days ago. So
14-year-old triplets.
14-year-old triplets. They turned 15 here in a few days, and
boy,
start high school band and keep the cycle going.
What do they play?
My daughter plays trumpet, my other daughter plays clarinet, and my son plays percussion.
Okay.
So they're all three pretty good.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Let's go back to when you were working with Dr. Louder.
Okay.
Just tell me about it.
I heard him in 1976 at a tuba symposium. I was very, very impressed with his playing, the finest euphonium player I'd ever heard, and I resolved if I ever got the chance I would try to study with him. When I finished undergrad school, I went and auditioned for him. I was impressed both with his playing, but how gracious a gentleman he was. A wonderful, wonderful person to work with. And I studied with him full-time in graduate school from 78 through 79. And then again, the lessons after that for about 2 more years until I got the job here.
Mm-hmm.
But, one of the finest people I've ever met in my life, marvelous player, but far more than that, a marvelous human being.
Boy, you got that right.
The kind of person you want to know, the kind of person you just want to be around, and everything else.
Yep. Yeah, he's a very gracious individual.
Yes.
Now see, I wasn't aware this morning when I came in that you had been a student of his.
Yep.
He and I had talked about this because we both play in the Virginia Grand Military Band. The last concert, I was talking about this, and he says, well, I'm coming up for the alumni meeting. And I said, well, boy, that'll be a great time for us to get together. So I was counting on that. I was going to do him alone, but I was talking to his wife this morning because I wasn't playing, and she was the one that let the cat out of the bag. And I said, gosh, what a unique opportunity. And this just really expands the whole thing that we're doing.
He will be a far better interview than me, I'm sure.
No. He'll be his own interview.
Okay.
But see, you're playing today under Commander Mitchell.
Yep.
Now, you may not be aware of what you're touching base with, but that's our link to the first leader of the United States Navy Band.
Yep.
Because he sat solo clarinet under Benter, and we'll keep this thing going, and and this has been great. You might end up on here again sometime, but
Okay.
this has been very gracious of you, and I really appreciate the time. Okay? All right, so you were here. Now it's about 12 o'clock on August 2nd, and we've just finished a little while ago talking to Master Chief David Miller. And we alluded to his teacher that was over at Morehead State University when he went there. And this was such a unique opportunity, I just didn't want to pass this up. So now we're here with a guy that came to the Navy, I think, about the same time that I did. You are Earle Louder?
Correct.
And why don't you tell me about when you came in the Navy? How'd you find out about this Navy business and all that? And we'll just play back and forth as we go along.
That sounds good. The way I heard about the Navy Band originally, Marshall, was I was a student at Michigan State University from 1950 to 56. And during that time, I guess it was in actually the spring of 56, the Navy Band performed in Lansing, Michigan. However, I was not in town. I was in a neighboring town about 30 miles away, Owasso, Michigan, teaching private lessons for the band director there. And when I came back to town on Sunday morning, and I met with Mr. Falcone, Leonard Falcone, who was the band director and also my teacher and mentor there on the Euphonium at Michigan State. And he said, I guest conducted the Navy Band on Saturday. He said, you were out of town, weren't you? I said, yes, I was. And told him where I was. And he said, well, listen, he says, I want you to make arrangements to go to Washington and audition for the Navy Band. And I looked at him, I said, you're serious? I said, I'm not that caliber musician. He says, I want you to go and audition for the Navy Band. He says, I found out that Harold Brash had retired the previous year in 1955 and said there's an opening. And that was the first time I ever thought of performing professionally in my life. And so he was a very, what do you call it, person who would say what he said, and you did what he said.
He made you an offer that you couldn't refuse.
Exactly. So I contacted the Navy Band, and I came that summer, actually, and auditioned here. And the band actually was out of town, so I auditioned over at the School of Music in Anacostia. And they, of course, put down my audition record. I think the guy's name, the euphonium player who auditioned me there, was Edwards. I can't remember his first name, but he was from Annapolis.
Yeah.
I think you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Yeah. And
yes.
They sent my results over to the Navy Band when they got back, and then Brendler, Commander Brendler, contacted me and said he'd like for me to come and interview again, so I did. And that's how it led to my joining the Navy Band. So in October 5th, I went to a boot camp at Bainbridge, Maryland. Spent 12 weeks there.
Let's see, this was in 56.
56. October 56.
56, yeah.
And in Bainbridge, that was an interesting place.
Seems like Fritz Eamon might have had that band in.
I cannot remember who was there, to be honest.
It was either he or Freddie LeGrand, one or the other.
Yeah. But while I was there, the two people who were in charge of the recruit band were not musicians necessarily. One was a first-class commissary man,
okay.
and the other guy was a chief boatswain's mate. And so when they found out that I had just come from college, you know, and I was supposed to know all of that stuff, he said, so I actually started conducting the band for them. And it was great, although the band rehearsed at 3:30 in the morning.
That's nice.
Yeah. But anyway, that's how it led to it.
Real musician's hours.
Yeah. So after I finished my boot training and I went home and got, I think it was 2 weeks leave, and then I reported literally on the first day of January of 1957.
57.
And as a matter of fact, that was the year that Eisenhower was inaugurated. I didn't have to march the inaugural parade though, because I didn't get there in time to get all my uniforms.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, let's see, when I was talking to David just before you, we were talking about 57 because that's the year that I made chief. And Joe Phillips came in that year also.
Is that right?
Over the school. Yeah. And you'll see it on here because it's on an earlier part of this. So just kind of relate to me some things that might come to your mind as you were progressing through the band over the years there. You guys went on tour, and who was it? Let's see, Brash had gone. Yeah. And who was in the Euphonium section?
Well, the Euphonium section consisted of Lonnie Leard.
Yeah,
who
okay.
was principal, and Commander Brendler sat me right next to him, a sort of assistant to him.
Yeah.
And then to my right was Corliss Harsha.
Okay.
And then John Gattuso.
John Gattuso, and he left about a year or so after that.
That's right. It wasn't too long after that John went to the schools.
Yeah, yeah.
John was a peach of a guy.
He was a peach of a guy. Yeah. And I'll put it on here, and John will scream at me about it, but that's all right. Yeah. But the way the story goes is he had gone up for E8 and made it, and the commander hadn't put him up for it.
That's right. That's exactly what happened. We were on tour, and when we got back, the commander found out about it.
Right. So you can't refute facts.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Yeah, I was over the school then because I had just completed the advanced course and had been added to the staff. And I stayed there for, well, longer than I wanted to, but that's neither here nor there. So yeah, I remember those years with the band, and that was interesting.
I'll tell you, that was the first couple of years I was in the band were really great years for me in the fact that where I was sitting, right next to Lonnie, I don't know if you remember Lonnie Leard, but he was an exceptional section euphoniumist. I mean, there was nothing that he really couldn't play.
I didn't really know him.
Yeah, and I learned more just by sitting there, listening to his way of doing certain rhythms, of doing certain styles, and those 2 years really formulated how I then went on from that point on as a euphonium performer with the Navy band.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate those years with him there.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. And see, of course, in the trombone section, you had.
Well, when I first got there, Homer Phillips was still there.
Okay, he had gone then?
He was just leaving. He was there when I got there.
Okay.
And he was just leaving. He played a couple of concerts while I was still there.
Okay.
And then Larry Weedy was there.
Yeah. Now, I had Homer's two sons when I finally came to the band. And two fine gentlemen. You know, it's a great family and adds to the tradition of this band.
Right.
Let's see, of course, Zeke Zeddy was holding forth there.
Yeah, Zeke was the drum major and the piccolo specials for the band.
Yeah, he and Larry used to come over to the Chiefs Club.
Oh, yeah.
Because I played there. And they would come over there all the time because I played there 4 nights a week.
Right. I have to tell you about Zeke real quickly.
Sure.
When I first walked into the sail-off, the first day I got there, and I walked up that long steps out in front and went into the main sail-off.
Yeah.
And here's this big, tall guy with a long black coat, you know, the navy blue coat that we used to wear, the horse blanket we called it.
Yeah.
and his baton, and he was marching up and down there practicing for the inaugural. And that was my first impression of Zeke Zeddy.
How about that?
But he brought me in, he took me in the office and checked me in, and he says, go home and come back on Thursday. Which I did.
We've got work to do here.
Exactly.
Yeah, there was song to 6'2" that you used to sing on the bus in the morning after tours or something like this? 6'2", eyes are blue.
Yeah.
Especially for Zeke.
For Zeke. Yeah.
Yeah. That. So you progressed through the band there, and you were the soloist there, and your chop is still fine, and
Oh yes.
and you're still playing, and
I'm still playing a lot today and enjoying it.
sure.
The Lord's been very good to me. He's given me good health and good lip, and I figure as long as I got those two things, I'll keep on playing.
Yeah. Now you left the band when?
In 1968, in April 5th, 1968.
April 5th, 1968. Okay. Isn't that close to the time that Ed DiMattia got out too?
When who?
Ed DiMattia.
Oh yes, Ed was here. Matter of fact, Ed was here while I was here, and then of course, you know about Eddie. He had to.
Yeah.
He had to leave.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was an interesting thing.
Yeah. Well, Ed will be on here. I've got him lined up with somebody. He doesn't know this yet.
Yeah.
but and after you got out of the Navy, what happened? And you continued to play, but
actually, I was really fortunate to have the best of both worlds, of the education world and of the performance world. I went to Morehead State University and taught there for 28 years. But they gave me such a great latitude of going out and performing, because every time I went out to perform, I was representing them as well.
Sure.
And I got hooked up with Leonard Smith up in Detroit with the Detroit Concert Band.
Right.
I was able to work with him for 22 years up
Yeah.
there. And so I was able to do both. And so my time at Morehead was very valuable to me in the fact that it wasn't just leave performance aside, go teach.
Yeah.
I was in both of those worlds totally.
That's fulfilling.
Oh yes. One of the reasons I went there was it's a small university. It only has a cap of about 9,000 to 10,000, on it. But that music department had a specialist teaching on every instrument.
Fantastic.
And I thought, I looked at that program and thought, hey, this is fine. I want to do this.
That's tremendous. Now, it was while you were at Morehead that David Miller came as a student.
Dave Miles.
David Miles,
Yeah,
I'm
right.
sorry.
It was. He came to do his master's work with me, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
And he was there for a year. He was actually there for 2 years, I believe, As a matter of fact, he met his wife while he was there.
He speaks very highly of you.
Oh, I enjoyed working with him. And I tell you, the students that I had to come as students coming to me as the professor, trying to help them not only learn how to play their instrument,
Sure.
but how to be better persons.
Sure.
Because to me, that's what teaching's about.
Absolutely.
I used to tell them when they walked through the door with a euphonium in their hand, I said, you don't play euphonium. They look at me like, well, I've got the euphonium here. I said, you express yourself through the euphonium.
Wonderful.
You've chosen that instrument through which to express yourself.
Yeah.
And then we go from there.
That's a good place to start.
Yep.
That's a good place to start. Well, I was certainly surprised to learn this morning while the band was rehearsing, because I wasn't playing, and I was talking to your wife out there.
Oh, yes.
And I told her that at the last Virginia Grand Military Band concert we had discussed this, and she says, I didn't know anything about that. I said, well, you sound just like my wife, But that was when I found out about David Miles,
Yes.
and I think that I said, gosh, we just got to put this together. We possibly can.
Yeah, I felt very honored that Dave was able to make the band.
Oh, yeah.
Be a part of it.
Yeah. See, that further expresses this whole story that we're telling. And Navy music has made just an enormous footprint in band music and in the Navy itself. And this enormous footprint has to leave its footprint, and we're the only people that can cause that to happen. And that's how this business got started. So we'll keep this going on just as long as we possibly can. And
Well, I spent 12 years here, but I've had the question asked me many times. Well, why didn't you stay for 20, or why did you get out after 12? Was something wrong? Didn't you like what you were doing? I said, not in the least. I said, my time spent here, I can't tell you how valuable that was to me. It was one of the greatest experiences I can think of, and being part of this family,
Yeah.
performing with it.
Yeah.
And I said, the reason I got out is because I hadn't prepared myself initially to be an educator as well. And I wanted to get into that field as well. And I figured after 12 years as a professional performer, I'd have a lot more to take to the education program
Sure.
than I would have had I started immediately from college.
Sure. Sure.
And so that's the reason. I could have stayed here for 30 and been happy as well. But I'm not unhappy because I really feel like that's where I was supposed to be. I feel like the Lord led me there because not only am I involved in my instrument, but I do a lot of church music, choirs, and all this is part of my life.
Sure. Yeah. Now, music. If there wasn't for music, I wouldn't have a life.
Exactly.
As it is now, you play in a number of bands, and I play in a number of bands,
right.
and I couldn't go a day without music.
Yeah.
It's really very, very difficult.
Since I retired from the university, I have to tell you, Marshall, I'm thoroughly enjoying retirement, but I haven't been able to define the word retirement or retire.
Neither have I.
No, other than it's two words, which means again, and you know what tired is. But I'm not that way. I've found it to be able to make my own agenda, as you said, and be able to play with other groups and enjoy what I've done through my life and have fun with it still on my own terms and make my own agenda. I really am having total fun doing that.
Bob Birdsong said to me one time, I don't know whether you knew Birdsong or not.
Yes,
but,
I did.
Okay. We were extremely close. And he said to me, he says, life is function. And when you cease to function, then it's time for the box.
Exactly.
And I've remembered that, and I miss him a lot too.
Yeah.
I tell you.
I'll put it this way, I've never bought a rocking chair because
Yeah.
I can't see myself sitting on the front porch rocking the hours away.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, my days are full and not enough hours in them, really. And that's the way that it goes. Well, I'm glad that I brought this down with me today and that we could sandwich this in here because this will become an integral part of this whole story as we progress along with this archive for the Navy Musicians Association.
Well, I appreciate you including me in that.
I thank you 1,000%.
Right.